Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is 10:57 on a Thursday. It's a pretty dark and dreary, rainy day. So yeah, good day to always watch movies. But hey, any day or every day is a good day to watch movies. It's funny. I'm at a point now where because I watch kind of on. I'm very much a creature of habit. I have my routine every day that I do, and I think most people function the best when they have a routine. And it's good for the brain. It's good for the psyche to try to have a routine. At least it is for me, where there's a routine and you kind of follow a certain kind of regimen every day. But part of that regimen for me is watching movies, and I want to thank, before I get into today's show and all of those things, I want to thank some of the new subscribers that have been coming on board to Film Fanatic. It's really cool. And some of the new folks that have been commenting on these videos. Lately, I've been doing more music related shows. I did some shows on one of the most important rock bands, and I don't know, probably, you know, safe to say the best rock band or metal band around, Deaf Heaven. I've done a couple of shows on them, on my love of their music, my long history with that band. I've been a fan of theirs for probably 12 years now, and also my deep anticipation to buy their new album, which came out last Friday. And I heard a couple snippets of some of the record. There was one song that I watched. It's a music video, and it's a single that they put out called Winona, and it's extraordinary. So I did a show just on that, which is a different thing for me. I don't usually do shows on reviews or reviews of, say, music videos, but they're just such an extraordinary band, and I just am so in love with their music. Just like Autechre, my favorite band of all time. It's kind of in that same league. So, and it just seems to grow more and more. And my anticipation for this new album is really through the roof. So I've been doing some music shows, and I also have been doing lots of shows about Autechre, my favorite band. So check out those shows. Try to try and always bring variety and some new things to the table for this channel. Again, I feel like everything is totally, at least how I look at my relationship to art. It's all like completely interconnected, and all of these things have a huge influence on my strange band, Quantum, which I feel like all of these things I talk about on this channel are just they're all like direct and massive influences on the music that I write for that band. So it's all related. So today's show, I've been, as far as movies go, I've been doing lots of shows on my deep love and my favorite label, Mondo Macabre, the greatest label there is, as far as, if you want to call it, boutique label. I kind of hate that term, boutique label. It just sounds so, I don't know. It just kind of sounds like pretentious bullshit. I guess, like, you know, but we live in a culture where labels are, and putting something in a category is a way of, well, for some people, an easier way to kind of get to something or to understand whatever have you, what have you. But boutique labels, basically, when I first heard that term, I was like, what does that mean? Like, because I've been into these wild and crazy exploitation movies, for forever, and within the last 5 to 7 years, really within the last 10 years, but especially right now in the last, 4, 5 years, there's just been a massive, massive explosion as far as all of, just so many incredible, insane exploitation movies getting 4K releases. I was watching a show for a little bit last night where my one of my favorite YouTubers, Mood616, who is a Canadian YouTube guy who covers all things exploitation, he was saying that there's been a trend recently, which I didn't really know about, which I thought was pretty wild, that there's a lot of these labels, different companies like Blue Underground and Mon Macabre and Severin and Arrow, boutique labels, if you will, that are acquiring all of these titles, all of these movies from like the 70s and 80s that were only released and could only be seen on VHS. They never even got a DVD release. So a lot of these labels now, or what they're doing is they're acquiring the rights to these like super, low budget movies that never even made it to DVD, and they're taking them from DVD or taking them from VHS and releasing them as 4K in 4K, which is fucking insane. And that's kind of sums up the world we live in right now. As far as if you're a fan of this filthy cinema, it's incredible. But when I first heard the term boutique label, I was like, what does that mean? Like, because I just, the further and further I got into buying more and more of these movies, I got more familiar with all of these companies, and I just, thought in terms of, well, these are just, these weird little underground companies that are putting out these incredibly weird and obscure movies. And that was it. And then it got a label, and now it's called boutique, the boutique label. But it is what it is. But it's pretty funny how things kind of get into this, trendy state, But I'm all for it, because bring it on, because it's fucking insane, the shit that's coming out, and the stuff that you can now get. Like, you literally can acquire, like, probably, one of the nastiest movies and one of the filthiest movies you could ever conceive or imagine, and now you can see it on 4K, and it was shot for like $50. Like, it's fucking crazy, and it's amazing. At one point, a lot of people, well, some of these movies had, some big success at one point during the decade or the times of the grindhouse and movie theaters. But a lot of these movies were never talked about, never seen. They were forgotten about to a degree, and it just grew in this weird, underground kind of way. To the point now where a lot of these titles are collector's editions, and they disappear the minute they get released, and some companies, can't keep up with the demand. Even though it's a smaller, weirder niche of people like me, it's it's a real ravenous group that's really into it and just fucking loves it, and shells the cash, over for these releases. So it's pretty unprecedented. And it was funny. Last night I know it was kind of late ish. Well, not late, but I was uh, I was home. It was like around like 8:30, quarter to nine or something. And one of my really close friends messaged me, who is one of my big movie buddies. We go to my friend Aaron Kirkpatrick. We go to movies and talk about movies all the time, and we've gone to see a shit ton of movies. We saw The Substance, we saw Nosferatu. I've seen so many movies in the theater. Just we've just had so many great experiences around cinema. But she messaged me last night, and I was in my practice space, dicking around, working on some music stuff, and she's like, "So, have you seen any seen any really, crazy, weird movies lately, basically. And I was like, I got one for you. And that brings me to today's topic. I did talk about this movie probably. I've had this movie for probably about 3 or 4 years now. And I've watched it a few times. And I can't get enough of it. Jesus, I don't know how to begin talking about this movie, but as demented as this movie is, and as disgusting as this movie is, it's so fucking amazing. And so today's show is on this fucking movie right here that is just like, it's one of those movies where you're like, which happens to me a lot when I watch a lot of these, lot, especially the Mondo Cabra titles, but really anything in the real kind of extreme cinema world, in the exploitation world, movies that really push the boundaries. It often occurs to me as like, wow, how did this fucking get made? Like, people, like, supported this fucking crazy, idea. Like, there were people out there, like, who were, you know, totally on board, and it got put out, like, released, and it's like, holy shit, because it's such a depraved kind of concept or idea, and so not fitting in any kind of form of social norm, and that is a haunted Turkish bathhouse. So I sent a link to this movie that I found online, and I sent a link to her because I was away from my actual movies. I was in my music space. So I sent her a link to this film, and I was like, "Yep, this is the film here. This is the kind of shit I've been watching lately." A haunted Turkish bathhouse. It came out in '75. Again, watching this, I watched this. When did I watch this? Today's Thursday. I watched it Tuesday night, and it's a jaw dropping experience. This movie is definitely one of the most depraved and one of the nastiest movies I've ever seen, and it's just completely fucking gonzo. It's a Japanese movie. It was directed by Kuji, Kuz, Kushiko Yamaguchi. Sorry for my Japanese pronunciation. Yamaguchi was the director of this film, and it came out in '75. And this is, of course, another Mondo Macabro release. And yeah, this movie is just so incredibly depraved. It's basically about these girls that work at this bathhouse. They're prostitutes, and it's this film is not for the faint at heart. It is well, without going into too much detail, even though I kind of want to. This is a movie I would sit down if I sat down with people who, it's also dependent on who the people are and who the folks are. But most people I know could not get through this movie. I don't think they could. This is a movie that I would say you'd have to watch with, definitely dependent on who you're going to present the movie to or watch it with if they haven't seen it. Just definitely give them a disclaimer and say, this movie is not for everyone, to put it mildly. It's just, it's kind of a grotesque movie. But the interesting thing about a lot of these movies that are just so extreme in nature, the subject matter, the graphic nature of some of these films, is I kind of look at it as this odd, kind of weird juxtaposition where you kind of can't believe what you're seeing and hearing, and it's brutal and unrelenting in every conceivable fucking way, but there are certain things around the way the movie was shot, and even the story, and even the acting and the cinematography, especially the music, is so beautiful and so well done and so well executed that, again, that's the thing I keep coming back to, rewatching all of these Mondo Macabre films, is, on one hand they're just total, like, it's just like, just completely depraved, trash cinema, if you will. But yet on the other hand, they are kind of like art house films. Like, there's something about each of these films that is kind of remarkable and beautiful. Like this, and it's a weird thing saying that, because you have this, again, like these two things going, where it's like just depraved garbage, and then on the other hand, it's like this, it's like seeing this beautiful painting, you know. So there's like this this odd kind of like juxtaposition between the two, or a balance. You have a lot, and that's one thing I notice with the Mono Macabre titles, as opposed to like other films that I've seen. Like, say, well, other exploitation movies in general. A lot of those really depraved other titles, or other movies that I've seen that I really, really love, they're just really trashy and just like nasty, and they do, they're, and to a point, they're so bad they're good, kind of a thing. But they don't really have this, um I don't know, this high art quality to them, if that makes sense. And I love those films as much. And again, this is just my opinion, but one thing I see that's different with Mondo Macabre is that there is this thread, or this aesthetic to a lot of these films, that give it that kind of higher art quality, where when you get, when you know get through the qualities that make these movies so depraved and so trashy and so low budget, they're actually like very, very well done films, like direction wise, story wise. Like, it's really interesting on how there is this juxtaposition. And I feel like these are kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of funny saying it, but almost like elevated trash exploitation movies, Like, if you think of Herschel Gordon Lewis, who is like, one of my favorite directors, like, it's safe to say that there's maybe not anything necessarily elevated about his stuff. Like, it's just trash, and it's just, but it's just amazing. It's beautiful trash. It's awesome, and it's so fun, and crazy, and insane. But there isn't this, I don't know, artsy quality, or art house quality to really be found in his work, even though he's like one of my favorite directors of all time. So it's interesting, and I think that, Mon Macabre, a lot of their films, and I've had this experience. I've watched some of these films, not this one, but I have watched a few of their other films with other friends that are, pretty new to the world of exploitation, and they really enjoyed some of these films quite a bit, and where they're like, huh, like, I can, because, well, technically they are all foreign films. They are all, of that world. But there's, again, that higher end quality to these films, where there's there's something special about some of these films, that bridges a gap for people, that can, that watch it and can really appreciate it, at a from a cinematic point of view, if that makes any sense. Like movies like, well, like Blood Feast, Herschel Gordon Lewis, or like The New York Ripper, by Lucio Fulci. Movies that are just visceral and nasty, and fucked up, and that's what they do. Those films are not going to be for everyone. They're going to be, those movies are going to like turn off some people, and that's totally fine. But again, getting back to these titles, Mono Macabre titles, there's that other higher kind of echelon art that's at play that I think could act as a, a person new to the world of, and is open, a person who's open minded and is new and wanting to experience all kinds of different cinema and film, and especially like something that could lead them into really checking out the amazing world of exploitation. I think Mondo Macabre is that gateway drug to that because of those qualities. It's very interesting. That's one thing that's happened in my thoughts more and more as I have been rewatching all of these films again. But when it comes to movies that just really push personal boundaries as to like your threshold, this is one of those movies, A Haunted Turkish Bathhouse. It's definitely one of the most extreme and disgusting movies I've ever seen, but I fucking love it. It really, there's moments in this movie where you're just like, oh God, I don't know, can I get through this because of just how the how violent this movie is. It has there's all kinds of depraved sex in this film. There is um, heinous torture. There's rape, brutal violence. There's copious amounts of gore, and it's shocking. It's completely gonzo crazy. It blends different styles of filmmaking. This second and third act, it really becomes a much more of a like supernatural horror film. The basic premise for A Haunted Turkish Bathhouse is it's about these women that are these prostitutes that are they are a part of this bathhouse, and you see how just how fucked up their lives are and how they are literally treated like trash and garbage by everyone. And the male characters in this film, especially one of the leads, um, uh, or the lead character, is got to be one of the most vile and disgusting people you've ever seen on the big screen. I mean, it's unbelievable, and it's so depraved. And it's about these women that are living this way, and a series of events of where this one woman gets brutally killed, without going into, I guess, spoilers. And she has this kind of supernatural. Basically, there's a vengeful spirit, a ghost that comes in order to bring back, well, to a degree, bring her back, but to avenge her insanely brutal death. That's all I will say. And there is there's this film also has like a deep dive into um, Japanese mythology. In Japanese mythology, there is a high regard for cats, and to where cats almost act as can take on the form of a like a divine spirit or a ghost. And the woman who is brutally murdered and killed, she has this cat, and that's all I will say. And it goes way into this very much a supernatural kind of ghost story, but like a revenge story. But yet it's this film could be considered. I mean, some people think of these movies as being like pure torture porn, and I can understand that argument because it is so incredibly brutal. So, but it is, for the most part, the film in the beginning is kind of set in this grounded kind of reality. And then it just gets completely fucking insane in every conceivable way. It's definitely one of the most insane movies I've ever seen. I've often thought, that would be, it would make for a really interesting night to uh, watch. Like, when I think of these movies, I often think, okay, what other movies in the exploitation world that I own or that I've seen are, at this level of pure, vile and disgusting, subjects, or just movies that are. It makes, after watching this, I'm like thinking, what other movies, are this extreme? And I thought of, like, wow, like that would be a quite a fucking night of movies if you were to watch. And the three movies that came to mind would be Castle of the Creeping Flesh, which is a German exploitation movie, which is so incredibly disturbing, very rapey, but so fucked up, and it's like kind of a gothic horror film, but brutal and just insane. That film's almost considered a porn. It's not a porn, but it definitely is very pornographic, but incredibly disturbing. So I thought of, like, okay, what movies could I watch this with, that would almost equal the depravity, the depraved, world that this film has, haunted Turkish bathhouse. So I thought, well, you could start the night with Castle of the Creeping Flesh, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. I love that fucking movie. I've done shows on that movie. Another film I could say would be another one that is equally as just gross, Infernal Rapist, which is completely fucking insane. And then also a Turkish bathhouse. Like, I can imagine watching all three movies back to back, and wondering, like, who could get through these movies. Like, cuz I have a pretty high threshold when it comes to seeing things that bother me, or where they don't bother me. And I have a pretty high threshold, I think, for violence on screen, or watching, other vile and depraved acts. It doesn't bother me so much. Certain things will push my boundaries. Usually scenes of where there's rape, obviously that will bother me, and things like that. But that all being said, all three films I just mentioned, and especially Haunted Turkish Bathhouse, is they're not films that are shocking. And in this film in particular, it's not a film that's just shocking for the sake of being shocking. I actually think the acting in this film is fucking awesome. The director is just incredible in this film. The cinematography is amazing. The music is amazing. It's got a really great story. It's really original. It's actual, like, if you took away the graphic nature of this film, it's actually a really, really well done movie. And so I don't think that it's shocking for the sake of shocking. I don't. That's not the selling point. There are a lot of movies out there that is kind of the selling point, to just show, brutality for the sake of brutality, because it doesn't really have any legs to stand on. I think one example of that, some examples of that are of the Terrifier films. I'm not a big fan of those films. I've only seen the first one. I have not seen there are two other Terrifier films, but I did see the first one, and I think that that's a pure example of, just using violence for the sake of violence, because the film doesn't have really a good story. Doesn't really have great, good characters. It's just a platform to kind of just push the boundaries as humanly possible with violence, and that's fine. They can do whatever the fuck they want. But this movie, Haunted Turkish Bathhouse, has a really great story, has really great acting, and has all those qualities. And the vile nature of this film, and the graphic nature of this film is, I think, at, like, that's not the selling point. That's not what this movie is standing on. So, but it's an extraordinary movie, not for the faint of heart. I recommend it to everyone who is has an open mind, but definitely be forewarned because it is fucked up. And but it's amazing. I think it's one of my favorite Mono Macabre titles. It's one of the most fucked up movies they've ever put out. It might be the most fucked up movie that I've seen that they've put out. And I was thinking of it when I was talking to my friend Erin when I shared her the link to a haunted Turkish bathhouse. I was saying, because we have some mutual friends that run this really awesome movie show or showcase at the Waldorf Theater called Waldorf After Dark, and they specialize in mostly kind of low budget horror films, exploitation movies, a lot of '80s films. But I think with what they do, because they obviously have to work on with the board. I think as great and as awesome as that series is, and it's like they do it every 2 months. I've seen amazing films. I've seen Akira. I saw Maniac Cop. I've seen Suspiria there. I've seen a lot of fantastic movies there, and mostly in kind of the exploitation, low budget B movie world. But I think with what they're doing, and given that it is still a community, based organization, I think they're kind of limited, and they have to really use. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's kind of the vibe that I get. That they have to have like a series of checks and balances of certain movies they cannot show, and I don't think that a haunted Turkish bathhouse could be shown there. That would be fucking amazing, like to see it on a big fucking screen at Waldorf Theater. But I was kidding around with my friend Aaron saying, and I think it would happen actually. I think people would call the cops, or people would like call in the SWAT team. And I was saying, yeah, if they showed this movie there, even though they have this thing going already and with the Waldorf After Dark, where they are showing movies kind of related to this film, in the exploitation low budget world, obscure and obscure movies and kind of weird movies. I think they get somebody if this movie was shown there, they'd get burned at the fucking stake. Yeah, which is a shame, But and again, it's like there is, everything is so fucked up in its world. But there's like, I felt like a few years ago, there was kind of this, our society was kind of moving into more of a secular, progressive, a little bit more of a fair and balanced, you know, uh, social area, where there is tolerance for and an open mindedness to, you know, all different kinds of ideas and ideas and art and things and sexual lifestyles that don't fit into, this kind of like, bullshit cookie cutter, white American, American dream mentality. And I felt like there was an open mindedness to those things. I think we kind of were getting into that space, but now obviously that's all fucking going away, for obvious fucking reasons. Um, but I had this idea about 2 months ago, and I really thought about it. And I had this idea of maybe like trying to like finding a space in the area, like a movie theater, that I could start a series of showing these movies, showing, like a bi-monthly series of where I could show kind of similar to what Waldorf After Dark is doing, but have it a little bit more, um, to a degree, with no restraints, as far as like I could show any of these fucking movies, and I would present them, find a theater or someone who was willing to to get behind it and then show the movies, you know, bring in the movies that I have on Blu-ray and show them, project them, which would be sweet, and do maybe like a little talk, or not a talk, but like a little introduction before the shows, and start like a series, but specialize in just showing like, you know, my collection of all of these weirdo movies, and just be able to, show whatever I wanted to show, and with obviously, letting people know that these movies are definitely R rated and they are, boundary pushing movies, chock filled with exploring all kinds of fucked up taboos, but they all have merit. They're important movies and they're fun as fucking hell. But then I really thought about doing this, but then I realized, I could do that. I could like go to a local theater, and some people that I know. One person I know in particular who runs a theater, who has, I kind of have a little bit of I have a good relationship with him, and I've talked with him about movies a lot. And I thought, well, maybe I can approach him, but I thought I could probably do it on a certain level, but I would be really, really limited to what I could show, because because if I did something like that, I would have the balls to show movies like I'd love to show movies like this. I'd love to show any of the modern macabre titles, not be afraid of getting shut down and being censored and all of this garbage. These are the kind of movies I would show, and then I thought about it for a while, and I was like, there's no way in a million fucking years that I could do that in this day and age. There's no way, because it would be shut down immediately. So I canceled that idea really quickly. But anyway, A Haunted Turkish Bathhouse, 1975. Fucking amazing movie, but not. Be forewarned if you see this movie, but amazing, amazing cinema right here. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.